Shavua Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Yevamot. We are up to Perek Tet Zayin Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbayev, Eliyahu ben Burcha, Israelo ben Chana ben Miriam, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, and Avdi ben Chaim Nachaim, V'derefua Shelemav, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, B'toch Shah Chulei Israel. We have learned that in order to prevent women from being unable to remarry after the death of their husbands, the sages allowed a number of leniencies in the laws of evidence to confirm that a man is dead. For example, people who are usually not valid witnesses are believed to testify that a man is dead. The next two Mishnayot discuss some of these leniencies. The Mishnah begins, Afilu shama mina Nashim omrot met ish ploni. Even if a person heard women saying so-and-so died, dayo, that is enough evidence for him to testify that the man is dead. Even though the women were simply talking casually and did not intend to testify, he may testify in court that the man is dead based on their conversation, and the court will permit the dead man's wife to remarry. Although this is only hearsay evidence, meaning evidence about something he heard from someone else, but did not see for himself, which is usually not accepted in court, as the Mishnah discusses in Sanhedrin, chapter 3, Mishnah 6, the sages allowed such evidence to be used in order to confirm a man's death. The sages allowed this and other lenient forms of testimony with regard to a man's death based on the fact that the wife will surely verify that her husband is dead before remarrying, as we have learned earlier. Rabbi Yehuda says, Afilu shama min hatinokot omrim hare anu holchim lispot v'likbor et ish ploni. Even if a person heard children saying, we are going home after having eulogized and buried so-and-so, he may testify that the man is dead based on their conversation. Now, although the Mishnah literally says we are going to eulogize and bury so-and-so, the Gemara on page 121b explains that one can rely on children only if they say they are coming from a funeral and not if they say they are going to a funeral, because they might think they're going to this man's funeral while in fact he is still alive. In addition, one can rely on their conversation only if they discuss actual details of the funeral, for example, the rabbis who attended. If not, they might be simply playing a game, assigning a person's name to a dead insect and acting at a funeral for it, as the Rav explains. Now, Ben Shu Mitkaven, the Mishnah says this is because we accept testimony that a man died, whether the person that he died, whether the person saying that he died intends for those words to serve as testimony, or Ben Shana Mitkaven, or whether he does not intend for his words to serve as testimony, but simply mentions the man's death by way of conversation. Either way, we can use that as testimony. Now, the next time it limits this rule, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba says, B'Yisrael, we're going to read the brackets, not parentheses, B'Yisrael afal pishu mitkaven. When a Jew says that someone died, his statement can be used as evidence even when he intended to testify about that man's death. But when an idolater says that someone died, if he intended to testify about the man's death, his testimony is not valid because he is suspected of lying deliberately. However, an idolater is believed if he simply mentioned the man's death by way of conversation, but did not intend to testify, what we call misich lefitumo, because in that case it can be assumed that he is telling the truth. And that is then a Mishnah Hey. Now, some more leniencies that the sages allowed in order to allow women to remarry will be discussed in Mishnah Vav. The Mishnah begins, Midin la'or haner ul'or levana. Witnesses may testify that a man is dead and thereby allow his wife to remarry, even if they only identified his corpse by lamplight or by moonlight. Even though a person cannot see as clearly by lamplight or moonlight as by daylight, we may rely on an indication made under such conditions. Umasin al pi bat kol, we can also allow a woman to marry based on a voice that proclaims her husband is dead, even if we do not know whose voice it is. Although the Mishnah uses the term bat kol, which usually refers to a heavenly voice with a divine message, here refers to human voice in a case where the speaker was not identified. Now, the Mishnah relates to incidents in which a woman was allowed to remarry based on an unidentified voice. There was an incident with a person who stood on a mountaintop, and said so-and-so from such and such place has died. People went to the mountaintop but did not find anyone there. Nevertheless, the rabbis allowed that man's wife to remarry based on that declaration. There was another incident that happened in Salmon. Where the person was heard saying, I, so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, have been bitten by a snake and I'm dying. People went to the place his voice came from and found a dead man, but they did not recognize the body, the snake bite that caused his face to become disfigured and he cannot be identified. We see what Ishto, nevertheless, the rabbis allowed that man's wife to remarry based on that declaration. Since the corpse was not identified, the wife was allowed to remarry solely based on the voice that was heard. And that is the Nabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have a Shavua Tov. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.